Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Amazing Grace, one of the world's best-known hymns. However, not many people know the place that contributed greatly to its creation. The Caribbean island of St. Kitts, together with the neighbouring island of Nevis, is one of the smallest countries in the world.
I see.
The country is part of the West Indies island chain. People from Africa were taken here, enslaved and forced to work for colonial masters. Most worked harvesting sugarcane, and many of the buildings on the islands carry this legacy. A train that once carried sugarcane to the mills now takes visitors on a voyage of discovery. Over a quarter of the approximately 53,000 citizens live in the capital, Basseterre, on the southern tip of the island of St. Kitts. Large cruise ships also dock in this port city. The island flip-flopped between French and British rule until it became independent in 1983. And the capital's downtown reflects this turbulent history. Independence Square is a special place for many, including musicians like Christian Kamal Nathaniel.
Making music here at Independence Square is one that fills me with such joy and pride as a Kittivision. In the same place where my ancestors would have been sold because it was a slave market, where persons who were brought over on the transatlantic trade would come and they would be auctioned off to the masses at that time.
Music has always played an important role in people's lives in St. Kitts.
Music is the heartbeat of society. The populations that came up from West Africa, they were mixed up, so it's not everybody coming in from one place. Hey, beautiful! How are you doing? You know, there's not everybody coming in from just the Zulu tribe, and there's not everybody just coming in from the Yorubas. And so how do we have all of those languages and those cultures, and how do we make it work for people?
You good?
I love you so much.
I love you too.
And it's from that kind of resilient nature that we have cultural traditions like folk song. One of the folk songs is called Come Little Donkey Come, and it was a play as sorts on the massa population, referring to the masters as donkeys. We speak about our feelings through art because my ancestors couldn't say it they had to put it in things like this, and so they could hide their expressions from the masters but still express it freely.
The narrow gauge railroad is also part of the turbulent history of St. Kitts. Safety is important to engineer St. Clair Philip, who takes a second look at critical components before passengers board.
It's a very, very important thing to go to the pit, because the pit makes you see a lot of things that you couldn't see without going over those pits. Since we've been going over the pit, we stop a lot of accidents. Well, the biggest problem on the trains is sometimes when the locomotive gets cracked. And there's a crack right here. When it runs, it makes a lot of noise down here. So it's difficult for us to know if it's going to fall off or anything. So, man, I call it a risk, big risk.
That's also why Stayfield Clark takes the precaution of accompanying the train in his truck.
The reason for the truck, in case the train derail, in case of a problem like a stone, straight off the truck, use the truck because the truck have on a hook. So we could just hook it up and lift it up in the air and push it back on the truck. So they could continue the journey.
And he's got another job too.
All the gate is along the island main road. That is where the traffic flow backward to front to go Basseterre. And you got to open it when the train is at like 200 feet away. So the whole complete traffic could stop. Right? So to create any accident from the train and the passengers then. I act something like a security. So for opening to make sure nothing happen. So that's what I do.
The railway was built over a century ago. It crosses the island and was built to bring sugarcane to the mills and processing plants in Basseterre. The railway is now known as the St Kitts Scenic Railway and has offered passenger traffic for the past 20 years. The most common passengers are cruise ship tourists who enjoy the 3-hour trip around the island in gently rocking train cars. Engineer St Clair Phillip knows the route and his train. Both his gentle driving style and Stayfield Clark's support help him keep the train on its narrow tracks. The trip passes former sugar plantations and volcanic mountain landscapes. Wonderful views of the Atlantic's waves can be seen again and again.
Train is coming.
Have you ever taken the train?
No, I never went on it yet. I ain't fancy that train. Those cars just dance too much. The wagon behind, dancing.
Theophilus Taylor looks after a very special resident of St Kitts. Leatherback sea turtles lay their eggs on the beach here. The species is endangered, and biologist Kimberly Stewart has set up an organisation to protect them.
There's your spot.
Yeah. Very lovely. Don't know how come I don't have no nest down here, is it?
Theophilus Taylor has changed sides.
Theophilus was a sea turtle fisher previously, and we built a relationship through research, working when he was working.
Dr. Kimberly Stewart stopped me. She told me it take long to grow, so we have to do something to save the species of the turtle. We must do that. We must, it's a must, we got to do that, to save the generation of the turtle that we save human.
Green turtle meat was once considered a delicacy, but the species is now protected. Kimberly Stewart monitors turtle populations with veterinary medicine students from Ross University on St Kitts. Here, research means a workout.
It's very challenging. It's a very intense physical challenge. So we have a group of the team members that are spotters, so they're only snorkeling and looking for the turtle. And when they see the turtle, they'll raise their hand. And then we have some that are trained as free divers. So when they see the hand go up, then they'll go in and distract the turtle and go for it.
Sea turtle research is teamwork. If the researchers manage to capture a turtle, they'll examine, measure and mark it, and release it back into its element as quickly as possible.
It's ready. Yep, you got it. Good job.
Beautiful!
Our aliens have released me. Good job. I'm always happy to see them take off and try to get away from us and get back to where they belong. So it's a good feeling.
The St. Kitts Scenic Railway chugs along the eastern side of the island. Tourists have been the island's bread and butter since sugar production stopped completely around the start of this millennium. Winston Caesar explains how the importance of raising vegetables became clear to people during the corona pandemic. He grows sweet potatoes and other crops.
It's been almost an indigenous food. It's always been available to survive one from extra hunger. Looking at the COVID pass, we almost couldn't feed ourselves. If we had to wait another month of import food, we'd have been hungry. So I'm determined to be one of these guys to have enough food for us all. So I'm taking on the responsibility to manage the crops.
Winston Caesar and his friends want to keep old traditions alive. Today they're making conky, a typical West Indian dish eaten traditionally around Easter on St. Kitts. The dish includes sweet potatoes and cornmeal, as well as some ingredients from the wild: coconuts, elephant ear and dried banana leaves that are moistened in the river.
This meal is a part of our culture. The thing about this job here, you gotta be very accurate and not to leave blood in your food.
Nutmeg, cinnamon and sugar give the porridge of grated sweet potatoes and flour its flavour.
You eat as much as you can stiff up your belly. When you feel tight in the belly, you say, yeah. Put them on the fire. Ooh, champion. A good meal, put you to sleep, wake up the next day, still feeling all right. Yeah. So that's the tradition of the conky. So we always make sure almost every household would make a conky. Our neighbor will share it with a neighbor, but everybody shares a conky on Easter. Are the boiling ready?
The meticulous elephant ear and banana leaf wraps aren't eaten.
It's good. Everyone has its own taste. But this one, perfect.
The train is crossing the first of 4 impressive bridges on the east side of the island. The St. Kitts Railway has its own definition of speed.
We're not slow, we just say it's a tour so you can relax and have a drink. It's beautiful to just sightsee. I do a lot of sightseeing as well because even if it's my country, but I'm excited to see beautiful places. So I put myself in the guest position and I say, man, this place is beautiful. I love this. I wish I was from here.
No one knows how big the sugarcane plantation was. The former processing sites are decaying. Because his services as a crossing guard and truck driver aren't needed at the moment, Stayfield Clark instead shows us one of the few places on the island where the plant still grows. A plant that made colonial slave owners wealthy. Welcome to Romney Manor. Maurice Widowson acquired the former plantation house more than 50 years ago.
I live in the Caribbean because it's beautiful, but I wanted to be surrounded by this beauty on a daily basis. And that's why I eventually bought Romney Manor. It ticked all the boxes.
The location's special history has also piqued the businessman's curiosity.
The manor is not a magnificent edifice. It's a modest home, but it was the first private home built in 1625 by Sam Jefferson, who was the first colonizer of this island. So its place in history is truly remarkable.
He's converted the sugar plant into a place for producing artistic Indonesian batik fabrics.
The quality of this is great. At least the cat looks like a cat this time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Carry breadfruit, bananas, pineapple, fantastic.
He's also interested in the history of the enslaved people who worked here.
What I know about them is that they contributed far more than people seem to recognise and understand. I mean, I'm looking at one here, a gentleman who was a cooper. Now, a cooper is the man that makes barrels. That's a highly skilled task. I'm married to a girl who is a descendant of slavery. I feel that there's nothing I can do to change the past, but I have, in my endeavours, felt that I've tried to change the future. I started employing women who deserve better opportunities than they were getting.
You can create your own style in the design and the fabric. And I also like working with my hands.
I'll make it simple because this is my job. This is where I get my living, my income, source of income. So it's very important to me.
The work, it's nice, so I like it. When you finish doing the work, you would feel pleased with what the result is like. So.
St. Clair Philip manoeuvres the train over dizzyingly high bridges on St. Kitts' east coast. Meanwhile, Stayfield Clark speeds ahead to the next crossing. St. Kitts doesn't fit the common Caribbean cliché. Striking black rocks dominate the island's image rather than snow-white beaches. Streams of lava that flowed into the sea more than 2,000 years ago have left a stony reminder of the island's volcanic origin. Mount Laimiga is 1,156 metres tall and dominates the northern part of the island. A trail leads to the top of the extinct volcano, which is also known as Mount Misery. Green vervet monkeys are ever present in the rainforests of St. Kitts. The primates came aboard slave ships from West Africa and have been multiplying since. Stayfield Clark speeds up to beat the train to the last crossing. Or to the place where a crossing barrier once was.
A car running on it and mash it up. So we have to take it off so we could fix it over.
Fortunately, his truck can also be used as a crossing gate. The passable stretch of railroad ends in the northwest part of the island. The guests transfer to buses for the trip down the west coast.
Today was smooth. The run was not harassing at all. I enjoyed the one.
The route used to continue here near Sandy Point, the second largest town on the island. The decommissioned section of the railway is now used instead for a hash. A hash is a type of scavenger hunt, popular with the residents of and visitors to St. Kitts alike. The rules are easy, says Percival Hanley, who's preparing for the event with friends.
When you find a circle with a dot in the center, that's what you call a checkpoint. A checkpoint means that you check all the available paths to find out where the trail is actually going. And therefore, if it goes with 2 dots and an X, like we have here, then it means it's a false trail. You turn back and go and look again. If you find 3 successive dots in a particular direction, that's the right trail. You shout back to everybody, on. In other words, come on. Hashing started in Malaysia back in the 1930s. And it was a guy who was unfit and decided to go out and exercise. And so his friends noticed that he was getting slimmer. And so they decided, well, what are you doing? Can we do the same? And he said, yes, but because he's fitter than them, he decided he will set a trail that they can follow, and they had to try to catch him. And that started the tradition of the hash.
Percival Hanley's real job is taking care of the cultural assets of St. Kitts.
This is called Charles Fort. This was the defense for the port of Sandy Point. The harbour was important because this was the British capital. However, in 1690, it was overrun by the French. In order to get the fort back, the British looked up there and saw that hill and decided, if we place some cannons up there, we can shoot down on the French and get them out. They did that and they were successful. And so Brimstone Hill was born.
Again and again, the French tried to storm the hill. The conflicts with the French went on until 1782. The British continually expanded the fortress, making it into an impenetrable bastion. The complex is now a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site. As manager of the monument, Percival Hanley is here often.
It's where I work, but some people say it's like paradise, you know? So I work at paradise. Yeah, you can come here and just relax, and fun enough, although it's a place of war, you'll be at peace. This fort was compared to the Rock of Gibraltar because of its impregnability, and therefore it was considered to be the Gibraltar of the Caribbean. Any ships that were known were monitored by the fort, and if there were enemy ships, they'd be shot at.
Slave ship captain John Newton is said to have docked here. He later reformed and went on to write Amazing Grace. The season's coming to a close for the St. Kitts Scenic Railway. The locomotive needs attention.
We have a lot of work to do on this one. There's certain welding has to be done, and there's certain adjustment have to make. So this one, we give him a do. He was working all season, so it's about time we give him a rest.
The tow truck is eventually called in. St. Clair Phillip and Stayfield Clark don't have any time for diversions like the hash.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to run number 447. Checkpoint. There you go. Check it out.
While the train rolls towards a makeover in the workshop, some of its passengers take part in a scavenger hunt at Brimstone Hill Fortress in Sandy Point.